Zidane Daney, Electro Ninja here, and welcome back to Electro Ninja's Lab. Uh, this nerd chat is one that we really didn't want to make, but unfortunately we don't really have any other choice because this so much is happening, and we need to take a stance. And I'm gonna let Jack take over because he knows more about what's going on than I do. I know a bit, but he knows more. So go ahead.
I apologize for getting political, but I feel like I have to. Mostly because my very existence is political, and as much as I hate that, it means that I need to say something. And in order to say something, I feel like having even a small platform like we have, it's necessary to comment on what's going on in the state of the country right now. And for me, that's a huge thing because as I'm sure all of our viewers are aware, having heard all of our conversations over the past years, um, I am a trans man, and that makes my very existence political at this point, which sucks. And today is designated as No King's Day because Donald Trump is having a multi-billion-dollar parade for his birthday, and people are protesting that with good reason, as you can see. Um, but they're calling it No King's Day, and the point behind that is to basically say that Trump does not get to be king, nor does anybody ever get to be king of us, because America has no kings. And that was one of the points made in 1776, is that we were not going to have a king. For instance, when George Washington got elected, he very quickly decided that he was not going to remain the president for as long as people wanted him to. And that was because he said America should have no king. He purposefully used only two terms. And what's really upsetting is that our government right now is run by someone who has claimed that he will eradicate voting in general, and that uh, he is going to try for a third term, which is not allowed. So
No,
it's kind of important to say something about this.
absolutely. Yeah, and
Um,
it's especially important to remember with the third term thing. Most of the presidents basically just agreed to do that because that's what George Washington decided. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to have more than two terms, and most of the presidents decided to just agree with that. It was only changed after which one again?
FDR.
FDR. Thank you. FDR took three after after the World Wars and all that chaos. Basically, having to he wanted to make sure that there was somebody in the middle of all this, as we were going through one of the worst times in our history. Um, and the government basically the people realized that even in a situation like that, it shouldn't be the thing. That should not be how it goes. And
Exactly.
we should only have a president for two terms. That it's too much power for one person to have for too long.
It is, and it's crucial to me that we understand what's really going on,
Yeah.
because it's very easy to misunderstand and to think that um, what's going on is not as bad as it seems.
Yes. It really
Um,
is. Um, and we should.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the LA protests
That's fair.
because that's important as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Everyone's been talking about that, and it's. Oh boy. Just what the fuck.
it's unconscionable to deploy the military on our own soil
Yeah.
for something as simple as a peaceful protest. And it's unconscionable for ICE to be doing what they're doing currently.
Yeah.
It is at best unconstitutional. At worst, it is like edging towards martial law,
Yes.
which no one should, which no one should have, no one should worry about, no one should be experiencing right now, especially not in the United States. Um, Multiple countries have, in fact, uh, they have established a travel ban to the United States, or a travel warning to the United States, saying that it is no longer safe for people from other countries to visit the United States, which is kind of sad, frankly.
It is.
That should really just tell you how bad of a state we are in. That other countries are saying it is no longer safe to travel here. Other places that have travel bans and travel restrictions and travel warnings are places like Saudi Arabia and other Muslim countries where it's not safe for women to go, um,
Yeah.
and where it's generally not safe for other people to go as well. And
Yeah.
so to put us on that level is pretty insane.
It is.
And frankly heartbreaking,
Mm-hmm.
because America is supposed to be the melting pot. It's supposed to be where everybody is welcome. It's supposed to be where we all have differences, and those differences are make us who we are, and they make us great. When we say make America great again, that is not what they are doing. It is, in fact, the opposite. Because America's greatness comes from diversity, and diversity is what we have, and diversity is what they are trying to deny. In fact, even saying that, um, they they like I said, they rolled back the Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Act. Not act, excuse me. They repealed diversity, equality, and inclusion in many places, including like places like Target
Yeah.
and other things like that. And some companies, thank God, have taken a stance against that. For instance, Costco. God bless Costco for taking a stand against removing DEI.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot
that
of
right there should tell you everything you have to know about the Republican Party right now.
Yeah. I think a lot of Californian companies have also taken a stance against this. Um,
Yes.
I can't. I believe World Market did, um, as did In and Out, um, and can't remember all of the other ones, but I know that I believe those two did. Um, but yeah, it's insane to just even think about that. Just do you really? I don't know. I don't know.
It's hard to really think about
Yeah.
because literally what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, how is this what's happening? It so closely mirrors 1930s Germany that it's getting scary.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that we need to talk about is the fact that they are inciting violence,
Yes.
and the protests start out peaceful, and then they send in these right wingers, these ICE agents, these military personnel, and start inciting violence, and then saying, well, look at all these guys, how violent they are,
Yeah.
and using that as an excuse to then do ridiculous things like shooting a reporter with a rubber bullet and not doing what they're told,
Yeah.
and other various things like that.
Yeah. And there was a thing
And
that that a friend of mine sent the other day, um, where somebody was in LA, um, and she was trying to her group of protesters was attempting to leave because it was getting close to 8 o'clock, and there's a curfew over there, and the police basically blocked off a whole bunch of different things. They blocked off public transport, and the only way that people were getting out was via cars and Uber. And Uber wasn't going to come down because it's almost time for the curfew, and they were concerned, obviously. So, and they were basically kept encroaching on them and pushing them further and further into downtown. And I don't know the exact details of what happened afterwards, but yeah, it's insane.
It is, and it's hard to even comprehend
Yeah,
because what's going on is not something that we've seen in this country before. It's something that we've only seen in foreign countries where they have dictatorships and fascism in control. Because that's really what this is. When you're
yeah,
deporting people without due process, you are being a fascist. That's just what it is. Regardless of whatever you think you're doing is right or wrong,
yeah,
deporting people without due process is unbelievably insane and is not okay in any sense of the word. To do that is at the very best unconstitutional because it does say in the Bill of Rights that every person, not every citizen, but every person in the United States deserves and will receive due process. It
yep,
never says every citizen. It says every person. So everybody in the United States deserves due process, whether they are a criminal or not. And a lot of the people that he's deporting are not criminals.
yeah,
They are just regular people doing regular people things. And for all the times he said that these people are freeloaders or criminals or don't want to work or are stealing jobs, ICE is bombarding a lot of workplaces where people are A, legally working, and B, are working. So exactly what part of that says that they are freeloaders
yeah,
or not wanting to work or things like that?
yeah. And
Because if they're raiding a lot of workplaces, then how is that not wanting to work?
yeah, um, there's so much with that as well as like, um, it's from what I've seen, it's mostly been targeting the Mexican population, people or people of Mexican descent. Um, I've seen a few Asian people also having issue being targeted, um, but those appear to be the two main ones that I've been seeing. But there have been others. But the big one that is just insane is that really shows that they are being racist as fuck is that it's none of the white people. Even if somebody came from another country and is white, they're not targeting them whatsoever.
And that became obvious when he allowed quote unquote refugees from South Africa.
Yeah,
Because those refugees were one thing, and that's important, and they were white.
yeah,
And God knows if they were brown or black or any other color, that they would be not allowed in here. Because we all know how Trump feels about black and brown people. People of color are not his friends. He does not care about them one bit. And obviously, people of Mexican descent, whether here legally or illegally, are being targeted,
yeah,
and Asian people are being targeted, and all the while, he let in a good number of refugees from South Africa who just happened to be white.
yeah,
So riddle me that one, Batman.
yeah,
It's the same as like wanting to end abortions. It's saying it's never been about the people, it's been about control.
yeah,
We're edging closer and closer to a Handmaid's Tale Gilead, and that in and of itself is disgusting
yeah,
because, like, how can you justify one group of people not having rights, and then how do you justify multiple groups of people not having rights? And they want to claim like there's so many trans people in the United States that oh my god everybody is trans when trans people are less than 1% of the population.
yeah. It like I know a lot. Like I know a lot more trans people than I think the average person does. Like I know you, I know Astrid, um, and I have a few people that I've worked with that have been trans, and I think, and obviously there's several of our friends from high school that were trans, but
Yep.
like even considering that, like even among just if we were to look at our school, the people that we knew who were trans, that's still a pretty small amount. Like we were only like 1,000 students, like at the end there, and I don't even like I can maybe count like,
Two.
huh?
I can count two.
Well, is it just two? Is it just you and Tesla?
Oh no. I guess counting us, it's three, because Matt.
Yeah, there were a few that were also. So yeah, I could have sworn that it was like maybe like five, because I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but I'm forgetting a few people. But yeah, like it's a very small amount. Um, and like Grand Moon didn't go to our school, but uh, was in the same area. Um, and yeah, it's it's insane. And like that's a small town, and like granted that's a lot of people for a small town to have that were
That's a
trans.
small, very conservative town.
Exactly, and like I'm sure that a lot any that were starting to figure themselves out and realize that probably didn't tell people. um, we probably lost a lot of people who were because they didn't feel safe enough to do so. So
I would agree with that statement.
so yeah, I don't know.
I also know there were teachers trying to make it a safer place, like Miss Saxby,
Yeah,
who had books on the subject. And actually, that was one of my first experiences with anything trans related. Was a book that Miss Saxby lent me, called More Than Magenta, Beyond Magenta, and it was about trans teens,
yeah,
trans and non-binary teenagers that I read and fell in love with because I finally felt seen when I was 17. And that's when I learned the word transgender and I learned what it meant to be trans. And I thought this might be me, even though I was convinced it was a sin. And my mother found that book and threw it away because she said, quote, I don't want you experimenting.
yeah,
So that should give you some insight into the conservative mindset.
yeah,
Um, Whereas right now, I would be very proud to say that Mama Bear and her family are way more progressive
yeah,
than anyone in Fernley.
yeah.
Um,
That's fair.
with Baby Bear coming out and using she they pronouns and things like that. Like we thought their dad might have a hard time with it, and he proved us wrong. Um, that he chose not to just simply ignore it, but instead chose to accept his child as she is, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Um, it was kind of funny. I ended up accidentally outing Baby Bear to Mom because I didn't even think that Mama Bear would see my Facebook post, but I wrote the word sisters, plural, instead of sister and sibling, or just siblings. And you know what was really funny is Baby Bear wasn't upset about it, but Mama Bear kind of was, and I was like, that's a little bit funny. Not gonna lie.
yeah, yeah. That's
Mama
fair.
Bear gave me like a really harsh look about it, and Baby Bear literally said she didn't care.
Yeah,
I was like, okay.
yeah. And
So today, I know this comes out on Sunday.
yeah,
Um, However, Saturday when we're recording this is designated as No King's Day, and there are a ton of protests going on all across the country. And I think it's vital to talk about those because No King's Day is an incredible thing to say on the birthday of the man who wants to be king.
Yeah.
And I think it's crucial that we respect and honor those who are actually going out and protesting today, because I can't. I have to work tonight. I'll be sleeping for most of the day. And it's also not particularly safe to go out and protest right now for me.
Yeah.
And so the things are what they are. But I know, like, the boy I'm talking to is going out protesting today, and my friend is going out protesting today, and various people like that. And so I think it's an important protest because Donald Trump spent over $1 billion on his parade. And what's really scary is that his parade is mostly made up of military personnel, including tanks.
That's insanity.
Which just, I mean, really gives Hitler vibes. It really does.
It also gives, fucking Kim Jong-un vibes as well.
It just gives dictator vibes.
Yeah.
Like, in general, it gives dictator vibes. We're talking Mussolini, Hitler, Kim Jong-un, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they just need to start goose-stepping, and we'd be right there. It's just... It's one of those things that I look at, and I think to myself, this is not what the Founding Fathers wanted.
No.
I will be the first to say that the Founding Fathers were deeply flawed people. Because, don't get me wrong, they were deeply flawed. There was a lot wrong with them.
Yeah. And
from being slave owners to other various things like that.
Yeah, part of that's the time.
And part of that is the era, but part of it is also morals, and morals, you know, having to have changed.
Yeah.
For instance, some of them were slave owners. Was that morally correct even in 1700s? No. But, you know, that's one of the flaws that I can totally admit, is that they owned slaves, they did certain things, various things. But this is also not what they intended.
Yeah.
Ever.
And
I honestly don't think they intended... I honestly don't think they intended the United States government to last for 250 years.
No, I don't think they did. And I think they said even that they expected the Constitution to be rewritten like what, every 50 years or so? No, it was even sooner than that. I don't remember the exact
It was
time.
something like that. They expected it to be rewritten because times would change, and we haven't, and that's kind of horrifying, honestly.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. It should not be, yeah. And I think it's also important to understand that this isn't just like, yeah, people are pissed, it's only in a small area. It's everywhere. And it's to a point now where it's genuinely going, they're actually discussing if it should be on the ballot for California to secede. For the next ballot that's going to be coming out in a year and a half. That, hey, should California secede? And I think that there's a lot of people who are probably going to agree to do so. I don't know what it's like up in Oregon when it comes to that, or Washington, because I know that those two are also considering it, and like Canada has said that they would welcome these three states into Canada if they decide to leave the country. So, yeah. And I think that that's an important detail to remember, is that, yeah, Canada is willing to take us if to help protect us and to get us to separate us from the country. So
I think, unfortunately, there's too much of a chunk of Oregon, and I don't know about Washington, but I know there's too much of a chunk of Oregon that is deeply conservative.
Yeah.
That I don't foresee that happening. We kind of
Yeah.
have a Nevada situation going on where our two big cities, Salem and Portland, are very, very blue, very, very liberal, very, very progressive,
Yeah.
and the more rural places are quite conservative. And I think that will be what keeps us from seceding and doing anything like that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the majority of the state is red.
Yeah. Like
I
you
will
you
say the
you guys are a
coastal
swing
cities
state,
tend
so
to be
yeah.
pretty conservative.
Yeah.
The coastal cities tend to be pretty progressive, and except for Brookings. Brookings is deeply conservative, and I don't understand that one, which is weird.
Yeah.
But
Like
you know,
here in California, we do have a lot of conservatives. Unfortunately, um, to the point where there are people every now and again who are that I see that are wearing Trump shit, um, and it's disturbing whenever I see it, especially um, because like you're in California, one of the states that is seeing a lot of this shit and saying no, we should not be allowing this shit, um, and fighting for the protections of the people. But another thing is like he wants to take away a lot of like uh, uh, medical insurance. Like unless you're working a full time shift, like full time hours, they don't want. He doesn't want people to have anything like Medicare or
which is
Medicaid.
ridiculous.
It is. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, granted, insurance as a whole has never been good because of the fact that it's basically it's part of the reason why prices for hospitals and stuff are so expensive. Um,
But here's the thing: as someone who's on state insurance, like I
yeah,
pay nothing for my insurance. I'm on state health insurance.
yeah,
I also pay nothing for any of my meds except for Risperdal, which I pay about $18 for.
yeah,
If if I didn't have um, state medical insurance, my medications would rack up to about $80 per month,
yeah, and
and that is insane.
that's absolutely insane.
With state medical insurance, my medications end up costing me about $18 every 30 days,
Yeah,
which is doable as opposed to $80.
yeah,
At the times when I was paying up to $80 a month, I was having to have help from people like Mama Bear or my parents, and that's embarrassing, frankly, as a 26-year-old man.
yeah, and they just it's not good. Is my point is like, but at the same time, insurance is really important for a lot of people, including yourself, for a lot of other people, people who are too old to work, such as my grandma, um, need who, yeah, if you can't work, then you need insurance, um, and I know a lot of people who are unfortunately unable to. They may be disabled, they may be all these things, and they can't. How are they supposed to be working, quote unquote, 40 hours a week for this shit? And
Exactly. My sister is one of those people.
yeah,
She has chronic migraines and other debilitating disabilities, and could not work a full 40-hour week, but Trump is saying that she doesn't deserve a right to life, which is ridiculous because literally in the Constitution it says life, liberty,
liberty and the
and the
pursuit.
pursuit of happiness.
Yep, yep. And on top of that, um, this is a rather small portion of the population, but think about people who their work is not in the same stance as like a lot of other people, like say artists or YouTubers, who some of them get paid a good amount of money, but they also work in hours that are not really well defined. Like an average YouTuber, they may work practically. I want to say like a full 18 hours a day sometimes or longer. Um, some of them work insane hours, but because of the fact that it's not something that they really some of them just don't have like an hourly description of exactly how they work. It's a lot of these people are self-employed, and as such they just work until they're tired, and is that and a lot of them have to be on like Medicare or Medicaid because they can't set up a full-time anything, so that they get any other insurance. Granted, there are things currently in the works to kind of help with that. Like we're relatively small, so we have so we're not a full time. Oh, neither of us are full time YouTubers, but because we don't get paid from this. But imagine for someone who does get paid for this and is doing several hours a day, and that's not going to necessarily be considered work by their standards. If you get what I'm saying.
Exactly. And yet that's a real valid form of entertainment.
Yep.
Thinking right now, I watch YouTubers when I play video games.
Yep.
And to me, it's a valid form of entertainment. It's something that people do, not because we necessarily need it in the world, but because it brings people joy. And that's that pursuit of happiness. And I feel like that's super valid.
Yeah.
Because it's the exact same as someone being an actor. It really is. Because while we don't need movies and TV, think of life without it.
Yeah.
We can't imagine it.
It's impossible to think about it, honestly. And on top of that, Trump wants to I don't know if he's already put it in, but put tariffs on movies that are not filmed wholly in the U.S. And
which, again, stupid.
Absolutely stupid. There, much of the film industry films in other countries. One of the most prominent countries for filming is that of New Zealand, especially with like Lord of the Rings and all that. But they do it with a lot of other movies as well. Like the recent Minecraft movie was wholly filmed in New Zealand. So I don't know, and like there's not really that many locations. Like, granted, America's big, but at the same time, there are a lot of places that you can't really do for that. And I think that
America does not have every climate in the world located within its borders.
Yes.
So sometimes you have to go other places, and that's just reality.
Yeah.
And what Trump is saying is that if you don't film everything here in the United States, that somehow it'll be taxed in such a way that it could be cost prohibitive for many movie makers to even think about doing it.
Yeah.
And that's not okay.
No.
You know what's funny to me is our country literally started because of taxation without representation.
Yeah.
That was quite literally the main point. And if we want to think about it really, the Boston Tea Party was a protest against the tariffs on tea, because we all could agree at the time that tariffs on tea were horrible.
Yeah.
And they put about 100 years worth of tea in the bay.
Yep.
You know, I mean, we're not talking a couple of tea bags here and there. We're talking they were sheets of tea that people would use for about a year at a time, and they put in several tons of these, which is about 100 years worth of tea.
Yep.
And that was their protest, which I would say is mostly peaceful.
Yeah.
And what started the Revolutionary War, and this is shocking to no one who's ever done any sort of historical research, was the British firing on protesters. That was called the Boston Massacre.
Yep.
So why are we letting this happen now if our country was founded on the very idea that A, taxation without representation is wrong, and B, that it is somehow okay to tariff things that we would never have tariffed before?
Yeah.
Why does this one man get to decide all of these things about the United States? Even if he is the president, why does he get to decide everything?
Yeah. And
that's not how that works. There are checks and balances for a reason. But even as it stands, the man has appointed several judges, and those judges are appointed for life or until they retire.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
That I don't agree with. But right now we have a red Senate, a red House, a red Judicial Court, a red Supreme Court, and a red White House. There's no checks and balances going on right now because everyone is letting Trump do whatever the hell he wants. To the point right now, I don't know if you saw this, and I was baffled by this, was that the House members and the senators are not even reading the bills they pass. They're simply passing them because they are pro-Trump. One of them literally said that if he had read the bill, he wouldn't have voted for it because of some things that were included in it that he didn't know about. When in reality, these people have one job, and that's to read the fucking bill.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the big, quote-unquote, beautiful bill.
Exactly.
That is absurd. It is...
The fact that they're not reading them is kind of disgusting to me. It's very much the same as finding out that most of Congress sits down during the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah. It's...
Like, how dare you?
Like, you're supposed to be the ones who are supposed to be protecting our country. And, like, people will protest the country by sitting down. And yet, the people who are... they just don't care. The people who are supposed to be running our country are just sitting down for no reason.
Exactly. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And it's not fair to those of us who have convictions that would encourage us to protest and would encourage us to say things like call senators and various things like that. It's not fair. It makes, I mean, for Pete's sake, it makes my very existence political. Trump saying that there are two genders and they are the ones assigned at birth. Like, you know what? That's tough because I was just having this discussion with Mama Bear the other day. She was like, it's impossible to believe that your parents didn't know that you were going to be trans because everything about you presents male. Your autism presents male. Your ADHD presents male. Your brain presents male. Like, you are the epitome of just a guy, you know? And that's what she was saying is, like, even looking back at the pictures of me as a young kid, you'd be hard-pressed to identify them as a girl.
Yeah. Like, most of the
you've
things
known me since we were 15.
Yeah. Most of the things that were, like, defining you as female at the time were, like, things that your parents kind of decided. Like,
exactly, like the pants I wore.
Yeah, pants you wore, the hairstyle, and yeah, stuff like that. Like, even then, you were kind of like not really happy with the hairstyle that you had, and
nope.
Yeah, and like, and like knowing you, like, especially now, I'm just like, yeah, that hairstyle never worked for you.
Oh, no. I sometimes think about growing my hair out again, and then I look at pictures of myself with long hair, and I'm like, LOL, nope.
Nope. Yeah, you're not like me where I'll just let my hair grow until I'm like, it needs to get cut. But
well, I do, but it's just a much shorter distance for me.
Yeah, it's a lot shorter of a distance for you. And that's fine. Like, and also like certain sometimes hairstyles will like set a certain way. So like mine is actually like even when my hair is long, it still has like a masculine look, but with yours it often had a feminine look. So that was a I understand not wanting that.
Exactly.
So
And it also gave off Joe Dirt vibes.
fair.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I said fair. uh, but yeah,
Um, it's just I felt it was important to say something about this
yeah,
because politics are not fun
nope.
and politics are not enjoyable to talk about. There's a reason we don't talk about them at Thanksgiving.
And there's a reason why
But
we
the
try to
reality
avoid
is
talking about them here on the channel as much as possible.
exactly. But the reality is that sometimes you have to say something because silence is the same as agreeing. And
Yeah,
if we stay silent, then it sounds like we agree with the bad guys.
yeah,
Because sometimes silence is violent. When in reality, we don't agree with them, and we don't stand with them, and we stand with the trans community, and we stand with the queer community, and we stand with the people of color community. And it is important, if not crucial, to say something about that,
yeah,
because otherwise our silence gives way to people who would otherwise think other things.
yeah. And one thing that I would like to also bring up is like if you think that people are not being political, I want you to genuinely look at some of your favorite YouTubers over the past few months and look and see what they're saying and genuinely look at what they're saying. Um, Even people who are specifically um, just focusing on games, just focusing on whatever it is, whatever their main topic is, look at what they're saying because they're even if they're trying so hard to not be political, they cannot, in good conscience, stay silent, and they haven't been staying silent. Even us, which we've been trying so hard to not get too political here, but unfortunately, we have to, and it's it's absurd. It's absolutely freaking absurd. Um,
It is. It's ridiculous.
you may have also noticed, um, in the time that Joker has not been joining us for a while, and I don't want to get into too many details, but he will not be joining us for the foreseeable future, possibly at all. Um, because unfortunately, he has chosen a side, and it is not the side that we're on. And as such,
And it's become hostile. It's no
it
longer a matter of us loving him without, you know, it's not a matter of us caring about him. It was a matter of it's become hostile, and it's no longer safe for us to continue that particular relationship,
yeah,
which sucks. It
it
truly
does.
does.
It does.
Because it's not that we don't care about him. In fact, we care very much about him. We love him. I would say. I would definitely say that we love that poor guy.
Yeah,
Um, However, we sometimes have to take our own safety into account, especially my safety,
yeah,
and the way in which he ended the relationship was frankly not okay,
no,
and we have to be aware and okay with that as much as it sucks.
yeah. For the record, for I'm just gonna say a little bit. Um, Joker did not curse around us, even around us, very much. Um, it, you may have even when we were all together, you would hear the two of us cursing like all the time, just joking around and stuff. He would never. This was the one time that I've heard him, that I've seen him curse as much as he did. Um,
To see him use the F word was rather surprising, I won't
yes,
lie.
yes, he used. Yeah, he said fuck. He said shit. He said all sorts of things. I think he said fuck twice in his message. So let that be just a significant explanation as to what exactly happened. Um, there's more to it, and we are not going to get into all of it. Um, but that is something to be aware of, is that this is dividing this is dividing everyone. It's creating a us versus them mentality in a lot of situations.
Which sucks because
It
in our
does.
case, it's a way we've lost friends,
Yeah. Like,
and nobody wants to lose friends. Nobody deserves to lose friends. But if you lose friends over politics anymore, it's not a matter of politics. It's a matter of morals and ethics, and having to protect oneself.
yeah. Like, I think it's important to realize is like I'm straight. Jack is pan and trans, um, and it's we've managed to stay friends this entire time, and yeah, I don't know. Like that's and we've both remained Christians, which I think is another important thing for people to understand is that Christians are not the problem. It's the people who are using Christianity in a way to attack people.
Yes.
And I
Having faith is not a problem. In
no,
fact, our government and the Constitution protect it.
yep,
Freedom to freedom to freedom of religion. That's a
yep,
very important part of our Constitution. What's not a part of our Constitution is using that as a reason to hate people.
yep,
And I think that's the important thing that people are not hearing right now.
yeah. And I think it's really important to remember your pastor specifically went out there as a Christian to support the Pride Parade.
We
Um,
did. My church went out to the Pride Parade. Both my church and one of our sister churches went out to the Pride Parade last weekend um, to support the queer community. And my pastor specifically wears this particular shirt that I really like of hers that says in rainbow letters, "This pastor loves you."
yeah,
Um, and I just think like that's a really important sentiment to understand that Christianity is not the problem. The people using Christianity to be hateful for no reason are the ones who are the problem.
yes,
Because the reality is that Jesus, God, those guys, they call for us to be love. God says, and Jesus says, they will know you are my disciples by your love.
yep,
So to sit there and watch people claim Christ while not being in any way loving, to me, it seems like the opening lines to 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul says, "If I speak with all the tongues of angels, but have not love, then I am nothing but a clanging cymbal." And I feel like that's pretty important because no matter what you do, Jesus says, "Let all that you do be done in love."
yeah,
So why are they not loving people? Why are they claiming to love people while also telling them that their very existence is a sin?
yeah. And here's another thing: even if you are someone who considers this a sin, Jesus literally loved the sinners. He walked with the sinners. He talked with the sinners. He helped them.
The man had dinner with prostitutes and other people who were considered the worst of the worst.
Yes,
And
and tax collectors. Um,
prostitutes, tax collectors, multiple things. In fact, one of his most vehement followers started out as a tax collector.
yep. And like,
And so I think it's crucial to remember that.
yeah,
You
and
know, like,
it's also important to think about the fact that even people who like God loved the most, and like David being a man after God's own heart was extremely sinful. Holy shit! Like it was like yes, the history is written by the victors, but holy crap, they kept in so much of all of his sins, and they made sure that they knew that David was a sinner. David was he was a womanizer, he was um,
A murderer.
a murderer, and yet he was also a man after God's own heart. Despite the fact that he sinned so much, he still did great things for Jerusalem and all of
For
that.
Pete's sake, he was the line of David is where Jesus came from.
Yes, exactly. And with
You
that
know,
as
like
well,
you can't have Jesus without David,
yeah,
and that is crucial.
yeah,
And that is something that we need to remember is that while Jesus did not sin, he came from a line of imperfect people. That's
yeah,
just reality. Whether we
yeah,
want to believe it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, whether we want to deal with that at the time or not, Jesus came from the line of David, who was probably one of the most sinful biblical characters outside of people painted as villains.
yeah. Like even, and I think it's also important. Like even Solomon was kind of like that as well, and he asked God for wisdom, and he still sinned like crazy, and he's David's son. So I, yeah. And even with like all the disciples are sinners. Um, not a single one was not a sinner. And
We
even,
even see the ones like Peter who denied Christ
yep, he denied Christ, and
still being crucial to the advancement of Christianity.
yep, and he's like practically the founder of the church. He's the quote unquote
He
rock.
is, in fact, the founder of the Christian church.
He is the rock that founded the church. Exactly. As as they said in the Bible, he would be the rock that the church would be built on, and that is insane. Like even with all that, and the worst, like even Judas, who we all want to hate on Judas, but he also um he felt so ashamed from what he did that he hung himself. I think that that's an important thing as well, is to think about like he felt so much shame from doing what he did that he could not stand to be in the world anymore, and
He couldn't live with himself.
he couldn't. And like even that, part of me wonders if I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that philosophical debate whether or not he went to hell or heaven, because there's a lot of people who say heaven, and there's a lot of people who say hell. Um, in fact, I think that it's most people that are saying hell for him. But I think that it's also important to realize that even he, in his last moments, seeked forgiveness. Well, he didn't seek forgiveness. He sought to quote unquote I guess redeem himself is probably the best way. For what he did, he threw the money back at the people who gave it to him, um, and then like I said, yeah, he hung himself for that, for what he did. So I don't know.
Exactly.
It's a complicated debate, and we're not going to get into that right now. But I think my point is that no matter what you do, that God loves you, and that He is, and the way that the country is acting right now is not love, especially when it comes to the actions that Trump is making. And many people have made the statement that this is turning into a dictatorship. And there are things in this bill that will completely destroy the country. Even the courts will be destroyed from what he's doing. And that is insane.
I would say that I agree with that.
Yeah. This man is a criminal. He should never have been allowed to be to be the president, and it disgusts me as well that people were even when he was being elected, people were being proud about the fact that he's a criminal, and that is disgusting. That is disturbing to me that they would say things like that. Why would you want a
It
criminal?
is deeply concerning that they were proud that he's a criminal.
Yeah. It's I don't know. And I think another factor is like that women I often see women saying that they want him to be the president, and I I can't understand that. He has been clearly racist. Clearly sexist. I think is the big one for that. Um, and he has said multiple times that he wants there to be more babies. Um, to the point where he recently wrote an executive order to reverse vasectomies, which is just what. Firstly, do you not understand how that works? Like, granted, there is a way to do so now, but I don't I don't understand that. I really don't. And
Vasectomies are reversible. But again, this is about control. This isn't about
yeah,
anything good. This is about control.
it is control.
And that's not okay.
No, and I think I'm I'm
It's
hoping that the
un-American.
I'm hoping that that by these actions that more people will realize, okay, he is a villain. We need to stop him. More important. I'm hoping that more and more people will see this and be like, no, we need to stop. We cannot let this continue. Um, like even um, we talked about this before, in that a friend of ours was when Trump was first being elected, was very pro-Trump. Um, he we had a false election, like a fake election in our class where we chose who we wanted to be first. First, we had like I'm forgetting the term, but we chose our candidates, which I think was like Bernie Sanders and Rubio. I think were the choices, and even with that, he still voted for Trump, but he wrote in Trump. But even after that, nowadays he is absolutely disgusted with Trump. He was so disgusted after the first term that he was ashamed that he even voted for him in the first place.
Which makes total sense. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of people who are going through that right now, where they are like realizing all the shit that he's done
yeah,
and coming to terms with all the shit that he's done. And instead of being like, oh yeah, this guy's cool, they're like, holy fuck, what did I vote for?
yeah. Like I think I'm. It's really telling. The people who have Teslas, and this is mostly people who have Tesla cars, that have specifically put on bumper stickers saying anti-Elon because many of them purchased their Teslas before all of this shit with Elon happened. Um, Especially here in California, there were a lot of people who purchased Teslas just because, oh, it's an electric car. It's the only option for an electric car at the time. Well, I don't think it was the only, but it was one of the first few, and they thought, oh, nice car, I'll get it. Um, and they didn't realize at the time. With Cybertrucks, you kind of assume that they knew, because by the time that the trucks were available, all of this was out. Granted, there were a few people. If you weren't chronically online, then then you may not have known until all this started happening. But anyone who was chronically online did not buy the Tesla truck. I don't think a single person who bought I don't know. Some people did. Some people who were chronically online did buy the Tesla truck, but most people who were not were completely against it. They realized, nope, we cannot do this, we cannot support someone like him, especially after the Nazi salute. So, which I think it's insane that Trump and Elon basically they stopped working together, which good, but at the same time, Trump is getting worse. So I don't know.
It's bad.
It's
I
really
also
bad.
feel like we've been talking about this for a long time, and we should probably end it here before this becomes one of our longest nerd chats.
Yeah. Well, I think it is one of the longest because this is an hour. We've been going
Yeah,
for an hour. Um, Again, we're sorry that we had to have this conversation. Um, but
but it felt necessary
it felt
given the
necessary
climate.
given the climate, given the
And
situation. Um, and
thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing us out.
yep. And I'm terrified to see what the comments look like. Um,
Yeah, best of luck with those.
yeah. Um, and yeah, I know that Joker was on this nerd chat, but now that we've officially explained it, I'm going to be removing Joker from the picture. So sorry about that. But yeah. Anyways, we will see you guys in the next one. But on.